Welcome back, YouTube. I am Danielle, better known as Danielle, the Happy Medium. And if you're coming across this video for the first time, or you've just come across me for the first time, welcome to my channel. I hope you are going to enjoy it over here. We cover all things mediumship, evidential mediumship, spirituality, and all things to do with development. For those who are my return subscribers, thank you very much for waiting for me. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about private sittings. Loads you've been asking me about this one. How do I do private sittings? What are private sittings? How can we do them better? So sit back, grab your cuppa, have 5 minutes while I talk about all things private sittings. So we're going to talk a little bit about what they are. There's a little bit of even with the general public, but I'm going to sort of talk to you as the mediums who do these. There's two types of private sittings. There is the prediction side, and then there's the evidential side. So which one do you do? Depends on what you want to do. As for many of you may or not know, for many years I did a lot of prediction work. I was not always an evidential medium. I started out in the psychic work, moved through the mediumship, and then into the evidential world. So I've done all three, I've got to be honest. So I cannot dispute one versus the other. And I'll be real honest with you, from time to time, I don't mind a good psychic prediction, and it comes off. I'm keen on them things, I'll be honest with you. Psychic work is frowned upon massively now, especially in the evidential world. But, a good psychic never goes out of fashion, I've got to be honest. But saying that, it depends on you as the person. What do you want to do with the work? If you want to do the psychic parameter and you sort of want to do the future predictions with a touch of the mediumship in, then that's good. If you only want to do the evidential, that's also okay as well. So I think first and foremost, before we even get into how to do them, think about what it is you actually want to do, because then we can line up what you need to do in them areas. So for those who are the psychic workers and those who want to do a bit of mediumship, that's what we call the psychic medium. Psychic medium is who does half and half. Both are acceptable as long as you know the difference. As long as you know the difference between when you're working psychically and when you work mediumistically. My advice to anybody who's in that world, start mediumistic first, then drop down into psychic. Don't do the psychic first and then try to head for mediumship, because what you're actually doing there is clicking in psychically. And I'm going to be doing a video on this on Thursday. No, Friday. I come in on Friday. Forgive me. So make sure that you do your mediumship first, then drop down into psychic, because it's important that you understand that you're always working for spirit. That's with any private sitting, anything you do for spirit. You got to make sure you're working for them. You're not working in the psychic parameter and pretending that you're saying that you work for the spirit world. That's unacceptable, and it's bad practice. I've got to be honest with you on that. It's unprofessional as well. And one of the things that I do see a lot within this sort of area, spirit saying this, spirit says that, but actually it's not coming from spirit at all. It's actually coming from the psychic parameter, because this person started in the psychic parameter, then tried to push over to the mediumship, but doesn't know the difference between the psychic parameter and the mediumistic parameter. Now, a lot of you are probably going to be screaming at the screen, and a lot of my students ask me this question and all. How do you know you work in psychic versus mediumistic? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that one in here. Let me take you back 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when I was first into mediumship and into the psychic world. One of the things that was very important to me as a medium was is that I knew the difference. And I had, probably like all of you, have looked across many different channels, seen many different people, and there's no real sort of answer there. All right, there isn't. And to be honest, I was one of them people as well. There was no real answer. So what I did is I went to spirit world and asked them to show me. So what happened is I started to become aware through pictures, and I have done some videos on that in the channel, and I will apply them to this video, or if you comment in the box, I'll send you the link on the channel. The next one was to learn it through feelings, and then to learn it through words. It's important that there is no defining answer in this question. It's a multitude of small bits inside of one question. Because we all work on multiple sensory systems, or multifaceted, you've got to learn it for all one. All like different ones. You can't just learn all in one go, because there's no real sort of yes or no answer to that. You have to learn to understand when you're working psychic feelingly, where you're working psychically picture wise, working psychically as in words, as in smells, tastes, all of these types of things. It all has to be worked on. And for about 18 months or 2 years, it took me 2 years to nail this and understand it. And that's how I was able to give you it on the videos. Now, again, that's only from my perception of my reality. I can only give you what I got, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of give you an email than what I got. If it don't work for you, maybe I'm not for you. Do you know what I mean? I kind of be for everybody. But, I'll give you what I got. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, apologies on that. Maybe there's somebody else who can help you out there. So it's important to recognize that you're not going to get it just in this one particular area. You're going to have to do it in stages. That's probably one of the biggest things I can talk about in that area. Getting back to the private readings, if you like I say, if you're gonna do this psychic mediumship, make sure you know the difference. If not, please do not say that it's coming from spirit when it's not. It's unprofessional, it's unethical. It gives spirit a bad name, and it's us who are those in the industry who are constantly trying to change and look at things from a different perspective. I've got to be honest, it's one of the biggest things that really, there's not many things get on my nerves, but this is one of them. And it's probably not on my nerves. It's more because it's about the spirit world. And we are meant to be ambassadors. We're meant to be showcasing the best possible, light for them to the general public. And I've got to be honest, I see this one misused badly. I've got to be honest. And it does the spirit world no favors at all. And that makes me upset. I've got to be honest with you on that one. So if you get to do not do that, it's just unprofessional. It just doesn't look good. All right. Next to that is obviously mediumship. Now, mediumship's not predicting, but you're not quite in the evidential world either. So mediumship is we're bringing through evidence, but it's not really strong evidential mediumship. So it might be the little grey-haired grandma, it might be the granddad with a flat cap. It's that type of world, and we are producing from spirit, we are giving evidence, but it's not really the strong, chunky piece of evidence, as I call it. So this world is all about sort of learning to turn the psychic parameters out. Now, another hint and tip here. People who are working in the mediumship world, one of the things that I've learned over the years, again, it's a tip from me. It will work for you, it might not work for you. I told Spirit World, turn the psychic parameter down. I didn't want to use it in my work at all because I understand that I only need to use my energy enough to push the mind to the intention, which is the awareness. We've got videos on that on the channel, check it out. The rest of it, once I move my mind over there, is all mind-based. Mediumship is mind-based, that's what it's called, mental mediumship. It's all mind-based, got nothing to do with the psychic parameter. All that psychic parameter is doing is pushing my mind enough to the awareness so that I can then connect to the spirit world. That's it. That's as much as the psychic parameter does. So what I did was turn as much as that psychic parameter down so that when I was moving my mind to the awareness, there was only a minuscule. So I was only using a little bit of my energy. I wasn't using lots of it, if I could say that to you. That's a hint and tip I can give you there. Check that one out, see how that one works for you. May not. In this world, you're going to develop, that's what you're going to do, you're going to develop that evidence to learn to lean into this evidential world. Now, the evidential world is the world where we don't predict, we don't do generalized information, we do hard, concrete facts, stories, and intelligence. And that takes years to master. That's not a journey that can be done in 6 months. I'm yet to see any medium, and I say this with the greatest respect to all of us in the industry, I ain't seen anybody do it in 6 months. Nobody. And unfortunately, there's a real misconception in the industry that we can be trained in delivering evidential mediumship in 6 months. It's a journey, not a race. It's a lifetime. Mediumship and evidential mediumship is there forever. It's something that you're constantly working on. You're constantly fine-tuning that evidence, that way in which that would deliver that evidence. And when we start to play in the mediumship world and the evidential world, we now hold a responsibility to the spirit world. How we produce that work, the way in which that it's said. Again, something else that annoys me for spirit, not so much annoys me, but annoys me for spirit, is again when work is handed out so poorly. I've got your granddad here, he's a podgy man, he's a chunky man, he's a podgy, chunky man. That's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable to call somebody's granddad that. It's unacceptable to speak about their granddad like that. And I've said this before on the channel, I'll say it again. You have to be strategic about what it is that you're looking to do in evidential mediumship and mediumship for that matter. I've always said that I want a message in the way in which that I would want it from my nana and my people on the other side. that is how you should be approaching evidential mediumship and mediumship in that bracket. Not saying things that are rude, disrespectful. And remember, these are people's loved ones. These are people who belonged to these people. They love them dearly. So you then start talking about, oh, they've got like a fat belly and stuff like that. It's unacceptable. It's not morally nor correctly right. And it also shines very poor light on the spirit world, the people that you're supposed to be working for. The heaviness of the weight in which that comes of your words carries for years and years. And that's not just a mediumship, that's across the board. Words have the potential to absolutely annihilate anybody if with enough intent behind the back of them and enough pain behind the back of them. They can do some serious damage. And that can then stop people going for readings in the future. And that then loses another person to the spirit world and that beautiful connection that evidential mediumship and mediumship brings to the table. And so for me, when we're talking about private sittings, we need to think about these things more and think more about the standard, the professionalism, the finish, the way in which that you want that work to be. Now, a lot of people might be saying, well, I'm frightened and I'm scared. I have said this before and I'm going to say it again. I said this in my platform work. Everybody's scared in some way, shape, or form. Everybody is worried that they're not going to get somebody through. It's not going to be evidential. They're going to critique the life out of you. They're not going to be able to take what they've said. They're only but a few I hear out of my students. Do you know what I mean? And what you have to understand is for anybody, even myself, and I can't speak for others, but I'll certainly speak for myself. There's times where I haven't always getting it right in private settings or on the platform. I haven't always getting it, as nicely as I would like it to do. And that's because I'm always learning, but I also have a standard of which that work should be presented in and the way in which it should be given because I understand that I don't want to upset people. I don't want to harm people. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to be a bad representation for the spirit world. So it's important that when you start sitting in these mediumship and evidential worlds, you have to think about what it is that you're doing. It's not enough to produce evidence. It's got to be the way it's handled. And I've said this to my students. I'll say this to you. Mediumship and evidential meaning means three things. It needs evidence, which is what you were producing. It has to have healing element in it. And it also has to have survival in it. Now, survival is where we're proving that they're watching on us from the spirit world. So, i.e., they may know about I don't know, about somebody who's passed to the spirit world recently or within the last year, 2 year. That's just an example. They're very aware of an illness down here. They're very aware of them things. That's sort of an ID or example of what I'm talking about there. Healing element, how work's presented, the love, the tears, the joy, the laughter, all them things are a healing element. The other one, the evidence, names, numbers, doesn't have to be names and numbers. Beautiful memories that are connected to just you and that individual. Beautiful memories of things that you used to do, personalities. Don't get too caught up in the names. I used to be one of their mediums in the early days. I want to produce names like everybody else. Names hold no weight now in the world of evidential mediumship. None. The evidential mediumship world has changed quite significantly over the last 5 to 8 years. We're more about telling stories. We're more about giving off the personalities. We're more about the key elements. Names and numbers and stuff still apply, but they don't hold as much weight now as they used to many years ago. So the idea that, and you might be saying, but the sitter wants that. The sitter wants that. I'll be very honest with you, and I'll tell you a couple of stories. I've had private sittings where I have produced every fact under the sun, and the people have looked at me like I'm not quite. They're looking at me and they're like, yeah, yeah, that's not what they're looking for. And one of the things with private sittings is you've got to learn to understand what your client or sitter's looking for. Are they looking for the fact, or are they looking for the story, or are they looking for a mixture of both? This is where private sittings have a lot of depth to them. There's a psychic parameter, there's this mediumship parameter, and then there's an evidential parameter. In evidential world and mediumship world is looking, the sitters can be looking for a multitude of things, facts, memories, and sometimes it all mixed together. That takes years to master. You've got no idea, years. I was working on that last bit there, mixing the facts with the story and stuff. I've been working on that for the last 3 years, refining that, really bringing that story to life, but with all that lovely fact inside, and producing that in a very beautiful and very healing way. That took me 3 years. I'm not blaming Aunt Trumpet here, like, but I'm not bad at what I do. I'm quite good at what I do. It took me 3 years. That tells you everything. If I'm learning something, it's taken me 3 years, then you've got to give yourselves a little bit of credit here and a little bit of a easing up on yourselves, because if it takes me 3 years, then it's going to take years a while to get it and all. So private sittings has a lot of things inside of it. It's not just a private sitting. It's not just selling a private sitting. There's more to it. So if you're playing in the private sitting world and you're wondering why it is that maybe things aren't going well, or things that are sort of not quite landing with the sitter, and I'll go back to a question I got off one of my students, actually funny enough, last night by email. They'd done a private sitting on the Friday, because I'm recording this on Sunday, by the way. They'd done a private sitting on the Friday, and they emailed me yesterday saying that they had done 2 readings. And this is one of the things that you can maybe watch when you're doing private sittings, and something I've learned myself over the years. If you're doing 2 or 3 readings and one out of the 3 readings isn't going very well or hasn't gone very well, there have to be a question mark over the sitter, right? Now, you might say, well, Danielle, blah, blah, blah. If 2's gone right and 1's gone wrong, then if it was you and it was the way in which that your mind's lined up and the way in which you're doing your work, then all 3 would be wrong. All 3 of them. There would be no good, because that would then tell me there's an issue with you as the medium, your development's not correct, you need to do more work, whatever it may be. If you've got 1 out of the 3 that's not quite right, you and the sitter either haven't quite gelled, and this is something that happens, mind, and I've got to be honest, we're not for everybody. Funny enough, I said that earlier on in this video. We're not. I'm not for everybody. Other people aren't for everybody. That's why. Not because we dislike people. We just generally don't, our personalities don't mix, whatever it may be. You have to take all of that into consideration when you're doing mediumship and evidential mediumship. That communicator you've got with you is not the same personality as you. And as much as you will shift and move your awareness, your mind, your personality to connect to that individual, it may just not be as good as some of the individuals who come forward who are like for you, like for like match. That doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. It just means that you're not the right medium. So what do? What do I have done? I've refunded. That's what I do. And the reason I do that for is with the greatest of respect to spirit, because I would never want somebody to keep somebody's money, right? And them go away and think, I've had a poor reading there. I'd rather give them money back and say, look, do you know what it is? I would respect that this just hasn't quite worked for us. Here's your money back. I wish you would go and I would wish you well to go and get a reading from somebody where it is that it's going to sort of link better for you. And that's just something that I do because I believe it's the right thing to do. So when you're doing sitters and when you're learning in these worlds, you have to take all of them things into consideration, all of them. You've got to take into consideration that sitter in front of you maybe the first time, so your intro is important. And I talk about this with my students. You try to start a reading with no intro on a private sitting, you're just asking for trouble. And the reason you're asking for trouble is because there's just a massive gap between that person sitting in the seat and you starting, because there's been no conversation, there's been no nothing, you haven't told the client what's going to happen, especially if there's somebody who's new to a reading. The client should be informed what you would like, a yes, no, or you don't know. All of them things are important. If not, and you don't do an intro, client sits in the seat, here's you connecting, waiting. The quietness is enough to freak you out. Also, you haven't prepped the mind. Even if you prep the mind beforehand with intention, the mind still needs, because you've still been moving around in the day-to-day world before you start doing them private sittings, your mind needs the intro to tell the mind, right, it's time to work now, we're going to be working for spirit. The amount of mediums within the evidential world and mediumship world who start reading circles, stuff like that, with no intro, I don't know, no wonder you're struggling to get that first connection, because you haven't prepped the mind's struggling to get from there to there, you've got the sitter glaring at you. Circles are a prime example of this, and I see a lot of, mediums and stuff fall flat because they haven't done this small bit of prep. And also just the way you talk about that intro. I'm an evidential medium. I'm going to be connecting your loved ones today. I'm going to bring through evidence that you could understand, but also to the wider family unit. All lines the mind up. Private sitting is not just putting a client in a chair and you just popping yourself off to the spirit world and going, I think I've got your granddad here. Think's not enough. I have your granddad here. So these are really important steps. Sitters, I love sitters. I've worked with thousands of them over the years. But some sitters also just make things just a little complicated for you out there. The world I have seen on demonstrations and also on private sittings. I brought evidence. So I was telling my students actually this the other week. I was doing a private sitting for a gentleman here at the property in which I live. Sat him down, said, I've got your dad here, X, Y, and Z. I mean, I've got your granddad with him as well. Yes, yes, I'll take all of that. And they're talking about some shrapnel in a leg. No, I can't take that. I'm telling you now, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard that. You're at point blank, no, right? And I just said to him, look, I tell you what it is. Do us a favour. When you get home, will you just have a chat with your mum about that? That gentleman actually messaged me over Facebook and said, I can't believe you said that to me. My mother has actually told me that my grandfather, not his father, his grandfather had shrapnel in his leg from a bomb from years and years and years ago. So cities will say no to you, but actually it's true, right, and accurate. And this is where you have to be aware that sometimes it's not you. Sometimes you're not doing anything wrong. Mediums, as mediums and evidential mediums, we panic because we're striving. And what we've got to learn to do is trust the process. As long as your mind's in that spirit world, and as long as you've connected correctly, and you're not talking about the here and the now, and you're not talking about somebody's relationship in the here and the now, and you've been producing evidence all the way through, then everything that's coming out your mouth is coming from spirit. That's it. And unless something seriously takes, like someone knocks on the door, or somebody sort of like, interrupts you, then you're good to go. It's as simple as that, unless you pull your own mind away. But if you've done the groundwork, these things shouldn't be an issue for you. So in private sittings, there's a lot to unpack here. Like, I got to be honest with you, folks. Private sittings has a lot going on in them. That's not including all the rest of it with the animal kingdom and the children and everything else to go with that. Private sittings is something that I think sometimes is, we look at platforms so heavily because it's so public. Private sittings do not always get the look in that's necessary, yet the amount of work that goes on private sittings is unbelievable. And hats off and commending to you all out there who are doing private sittings. The biggest question this video really wants to bring to the forefront is which area of private sittings are you working? Are you taking into consideration what you're doing to prep the work before you start? Are you aware that not everything's always your fault, and that sometimes you are going to end up with people who just don't genuinely like you? No, not just dislike you, that's the wrong word. Let me rephrase that. Should be like a boop there. Anyway, no, not dislike you, but just don't get along. There's a like for like match, Think about these things. Give yourself some credit there, because it's not easy out there, folks. It really isn't. Private sittings has a lot of complexities to it. It's not as simple, let's go into the spirit world and do. If you're in circles and if you're in classrooms, if you're doing private sittings or you're doing even a small amount of, work for spirit in regards to messages, get your intro in there. That'll set you in good prep for when you're due to do private sittings anyway. And if everybody's looking at you a bit funny in there, so what? Let them look. It doesn't matter. It's mediumship is about what works for you, what helps you, and certainly supports you far past that classroom, far past that circle. And also, you might actually teach somebody else something. I think sometimes we forget that just because I'm standing talking to you doesn't mean to say that you can't share knowledge with others and you can't support others' journeys through their level of evidential mediumship as well. And when we all start to work together, will we pull together? Will we see changes in the movement? And I think for me, that's probably one of the biggest things about my channel that I hope will always or will endeavour to do, not now, but further in the future. So there I have been, Danielle. I hope you found this helpful. Let me know in the comments box where you are with your private sittings. Let me know if you need to see some of them videos from YouTube to look at the psychic versus the medium. Let me know about some of the things or problems maybe you've had in the industry. And I'll certainly endeavour to get back to you in the comments box. As I say, I'm recording this on Sunday, so it's going up Tuesday. I look forward to seeing you next Friday. All right, have a beautiful day. Nice weather here in the UK, I've got to be honest. Have a great week. See you all soon. Bye for now.